All right, so you guys ready for today's topic? Um,
hmm
Part one is the metaphysical or the spiritual. That what I found is, and this is something Terry used to teach, that there's two sets of beliefs that tend to be really powerful. Does anyone know what they are? What are the two sets of beliefs that tend to be the most powerful in creating your reality? Beliefs about what two things? You guys can welcome to take a guess. I'm going to tell you, but I love to give everyone a chance first.
Beliefs about who you are and what's possible.
Um, yes, absolutely. The first category I'm looking for is beliefs about yourself. So
Yeah, so that
absolutely,
you're
nailed
like a
it.
child of God and you have all of the
Yep,
resources available to you.
exactly. So beliefs about yourself is one. The other is a little trickier,
Beliefs about reality.
beliefs about God, which to
Oh,
me,
okay.
God and reality, there's a fuzzy line between the two. They're kind of the same thing. So that's when you say beliefs about what's possible in reality, I would include they're really beliefs about God, how it all works. So just little tip, those are often very powerful. The piece I want to focus on today is beliefs about the self. That many times, and probably at least half the digging sessions you're going to do, you're going to run into some version of this. I'm not worthy. I'm not confident. I'm not good enough, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So what are the ways we could approach it? I just threw out as an example, let's say I'm working with client X and she wants to be a professional healer and she spent a lot of time and money training, getting good, but she feels guilty to charge people for healing. And that's a common one. A lot of people have that, right? So that's
Yep.
a belief about the self. I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I'm not, or something like that, right? So how do we approach that? What I'm going to offer is two different approaches. One is the metaphysical. This is the way most healers work, therapists, hypnotists, etc. We sort of leave the idea of the self mostly intact, but then we identify and shift beliefs about it one belief at a time. So in this example, you might have them check, I deserve to be paid for healing, and the answer is no. Okay, we change it to a yes. So basically the self is basically just a big bundle of beliefs, isn't it? So there could be, whatever, 50,000 beliefs about the self. So we try to find one, change them 1, 2, 3 at a time. We're kind of chipping away to change the self by the meaning we've given it. Does that make sense? That's the metaphysical approach. That's what the vast majority of healers, hypnotists, coaches will use, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's the slower approach, more likely to give some short-term result, but it's a bitch to get all the way to the core that way. The other approach is the spiritual approach. And just so you know, this only works with people that have some grounding and awakening, or at least some interest in it. So this won't work on the muggles. But for everyone here, this is a really powerful approach. So the metaphysical approach, we pretty much left the self intact and then chipped away at the edges. Does that make sense? The spiritual approach is totally different. We're completely redefining the self such that none of the old beliefs about it are relevant anymore. And this is an enormously powerful approach for all of you here and for Brent. What is that? Well, if the old idea of the self is this noun, that I'm a man and I have, a career and a bank account and a family and interest and memories, then that's what the metaphysical approach leaves that intact, that I'm a noun, a being. And we change the beliefs about the self. The spiritual approach, we really focus on connecting directly to the highest truth, that you are not the ego or the mind or the body or the name. You are simply the witnessing of a human experience. You are the verb. This should all sound familiar to you guys, right? And awakening was such a huge gift to me and a lot of you that are head cases like me, because I remember my moment of awakening. It was like a lightning bolt shot through my body. And I was like, oh my God, I get it. I'm not Brent. So when you realize this you, this presence, this consciousness is not the human, the man, the woman. It is the experiencing of the signal generated by the human in the universe. Does that make sense? When you realize that in this case, I am not Brent, all my beliefs about myself no longer apply to Brent. We've radically redefined it. Does that make sense? So I could have 50,000 beliefs about myself. I'm not good enough. You know, I suck. God hates me. No one loves me, blah, 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 right? As long as you think you're Brent or Phyllis or Sheila, or Rebecca, Lynn, whatever, all those beliefs about you apply to the human. That's the relative approach. We leave it intact and chip away. The spiritual approach, we totally redefine the self. And if you can pull that off, then those 50,000 beliefs about the self no longer attach to the human in the mirror. Sets you free of them. Why? You're not that. Does that make sense? And so today's piece, I wanted to focus on that. When you're dealing with the self, think of it as these two ways to approach it. Next week, or 2 weeks out, part 2 is going to be some more specific guidance on different situations where you might use this approach or that approach, or even mix the two. So 2 weeks out, the topic is burning the candle at both ends. Short version, start burning on this end and on this end, and that gets you to the middle faster, wherever it is, right? 70% of your burn might be spiritual, 10% metaphysical, or the opposite, who cares? They're both taking you to the same place, right? In this case, it's good to burn the candle. Short version, for most people, if they already have some grounding and awakening, I would often go for the spiritual approach first. It's like trying to swing for a home run. You'll strike out more, but you'll also hit a lot of home runs. You can solve the problem in minutes that way. The metaphysical approach takes a lot more work, but you're far more likely to see small shifts from the work you do. Does that make sense? It's like with homeopaths, that if you study classical homeopathy, it's about finding that one perfect remedy that changes your whole physiology and makes you healthy. But that's not how most homeopaths practice nowadays. Most of them, you go see a homeopath for the first time, you may go home with 6 different remedies. And I remember the first time I saw a homeopath, it was about 25 years ago. I think it was 1999. And the guy gave me a book, and I actually read the book, which I guess is unusual. I guess most people don't. And the next time I'm like, hey, buddy, the book says you're supposed to only give me the one perfect remedy. Why'd you give me 6? What he said was, yes, Brent, in theory, that works best. But that may take 6 months, a year, 18 months to find that one remedy. Most people are not okay with spending that much time and money without seeing a result. So especially my new patients, I usually give them a bunch of remedies. I'd rather they see some improvement or change and come back for more than aim for the grand slam and strike out and never see them again. So I think the same concept applies here. Does that make sense? The spiritual, if you hit it, you can knock it out of the park. Boom, solve the problem. The metaphysical is much more reliable if a longer road. But there are some people that need to see a little bit of progress in order to have the confidence to keep walking the road. And I'd say most people are like that. So be a little careful that I try to always give my clients something in every session. So if it's an insight, a learning, an important shift, just don't go so spiritual that people bail out before they get to the end, because the results will be less linear. It might be 1%, 2%, 3%, 99%, boom. But if you quit after 3 sessions, you'd never get there. Does that make sense? So most of the time I would lean towards make sure they get something out of it. Better to keep them coming back. Why? Again, if you don't come back, you'll may never get that huge breakthrough that was waiting for you. But yeah, it is a more practical approach.
Yeah, I had a client who had so many, like over 2,000 traumas. And so we started working on those and grouping them and got them down. I'm down to the last 9, but I wanted to switch to the spiritual for her because I was sure that was mostly what was underlying it. She was, no, I need to work on the trauma. So yeah.
Yep, that's a great example from Celeste on meta-healing, beliefs about the healing process. Your client told you this approach, I'm not going to let this other approach work. So you're like, okay, you the boss.
Yeah.
You know, we can do it the slow way. That's okay. Sometimes the slow way is better. Who knows why, right? But yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, just so you know, one thing that's very interesting. Okay, I'm glad there's at least one other man here, because I was about to talk about sports for a second. One of the things they've learned in sports analytics is most teams, most of the time, are too cautious. Statistically, you're better off going for the big win, going for the home run in baseball, the long bomb in football, right? The three-pointer in basketball. And so I think we tend to be naturally risk averse, and healing is the same. The spiritual, you're going for the grand slam. You're trying to throw it right into the end zone on one try, right? I just think it's so interesting that statistically, we tend to not go for the win. People tend to play it too safe. Like they found that with football teams, when they started the analytics, very few teams would go for it on fourth down. But they found that statistically, you really should. So just know our wiring, our natural bias will be to go for the slower, safer route. Just know the numbers tend to tell the opposite, right? You know, it's the, I don't want to get too much into the metaphor, but just know most people tend to be risk averse. And if you're really unsure, the math says go for the gusto, go for the big win. The example you'll see in basketball is you're down by 2, you have 3 seconds, you can shoot once. Do you go for a 3-pointer to win the game, or do you go for a 2-pointer to go to overtime? And statistically, you go for the 3 to win the game. But most people in the pressure of the moment go the safe route. So do with that as you will. Just know most of us tend to bias towards too much risk averseness. That's all. And it makes sense. You know, would you rather have 100% chance of $1 million or a 50% chance of 2 million? I'll take the $1 million guaranteed, right? Because the utility, the value to my life of that second million is much lower than the first million, even though the expected value is identical. Make sense? Yep. So that's why I'd say most people will prefer the slow route, but statistically, maybe you go for the win. Any questions? And, you know, I don't know if this fits into what you guys want to work on tonight. If it does, you might think about this. You know, think about what would be the spiritual approach, what would be the metaphysical. Sometimes you're going to use both. One's not clearly superior. What's better, hitting a single or a home run? Well, they're both important, you know? If I could come up with some sort of more female-friendly metaphor, I'd be happy to share. I'll work on that while you guys are doing digging. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the infield fly rule or anything arcane, right? For the most part, as long as you know the team that scores the most points wins, that's all you need to know to follow my sports metaphors. Only thing you need to know. More points wins. Done. All right, awesome. Question shares? If not, we'll turn off the recording and get you into a breakout room.
Just for your benefit, Brent, Mother's Day yesterday with my son and his girlfriend, and they went to a Giants game.
Oh,
and,
cool.
And it was no score the whole time until the last was a home run, and then they won it.
Oh, wow. Walk-off win.
And
That's
so
exciting.
his girlfriend said, yeah, that was the most exciting game she's ever seen. And I'm going, what? No other scores? I would have been like, I'm not sure, nothing's happening here.
And that's why baseball and soccer have not made the big inroads into American culture that basketball and football have. A lot of it's just the psychology of most Americans get bored watching a game where there's no scoring. They go, oh, nothing happened. But any fan of soccer or baseball go, are you kidding me? You get a pitcher's duel like that, where they're painting the corners and working the strategy. That can be exciting if you have the context for it. But I can totally get, Celeste, if you're not a baseball fan, that would be boring. Like, great, so nothing happened for 3 hours, then there was a home run, right? I hear you. You know, my big thing with sports is, why do they keep shoving everything behind a paywall You're killing your next generation of fans. Right? I don't know. Because the reason I grew up was sports were on TV. It was free. I could watch it as much as I wanted. If I had to pay for everything, there's no way my dad would have ever paid for it. I never would have become a sports fan. Any other shares or questions? Otherwise, let's go to our breakout rooms.
Oh, I can't
Right.
go to breakout room. I can't do it tonight. I can't.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not-
that was my next question. Does anybody not want to be? What I can do is I can either leave you in the main room, Brian, or I can put you in a group of 3 to observe.
I'm not feeling very well tonight, actually.
So you're
Brent,
going to drop out? All right, no problem.
Yeah, sorry about
1,
that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Before
8.
we go to breakout rooms, can we send Brian some support?
Sure.
I
Julio,
would
are you
love that.
there?
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yep, we'll do that. Julio, are
I'm
you there?
here.
All right.
Yeah,
You
I'm
want to
here.
be? You want to be with a partner?
Yeah, I sent you a DM.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
And
I
just
got
back-
two requests to work with Audrey. So unfortunately, we only have one Audrey. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we'll end up with 2. Does anyone else want to be in a group of 3? Or
I'm
not
happy to
ready?
be.
Okay, all right. So we'll do 2 groups of 3 and a group of 2. Does that work for you guys? Well, I got 2 requests to be with Audrey, so she's very popular. All right. And I'll be here if you guys need to mix it up or something, let me know. No, and actually let's do Brian's healing. So everyone, Brian, who do you want to lead?
Oh, and anyone who
All right.
you go ahead and you do it.
I can do it.
You
I'll lead. Everyone send unconditional love. Here we go. Sending healing to Brian. All right. Brian, it looked like it was something you ate. I'm not sure if it's a parasite or you're just little bacteria.
You know, it's funny. That's where my problem is. My stomach right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's-
that's what I was seeing. So apple cider vinegar might help. Do you have any ACV?
I do.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I would go take ACV, but do your own reading. Hopefully that'll help. All right, let's open the breakout rooms.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See you soon, Brian. Get better.
Thank you.
What is ACD?
Apple cider vinegar.
ACV.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
apple cider
got it.
vinegar. That's what the
Good
cool
job.
kids call apple cider vinegar.
I did not hear the B correctly. Now yeah.
All right. I'll be here if you guys need me. Return in roughly an hour.